Good morning and welcome to Daily Scuba News. In today's news, we are going to be covering the tragic news of the fire on board the dive boat Conception. So details on the tragedy are slowly being released and there is a lot of misinformation going about. So we're going to cover exactly what we do know right now and what is basically going to happen going forwards. So we haven't rushed to report on this because it's always been a developing story and we kind of wanted to be sure that what we were reporting was the right information.
And no doubt that whatever we're going to say now is probably all changed by the time this goes live. So it's an interesting one.
Yes,
anyway,
because we filmed this on Tuesday.
Yes. So anyway, the current timeline stands that for Labor Day weekend, a group of divers planned a dive trip on the dive boat Conception. On the Sunday night, September the 1st, the group of divers went on a night dive and returned to the Conception. The dive boat... the dive boat?
Yeah, the dive boat.
The common, yeah, sorry. Now moored up for the night in the Plates Harbour, is that how you pronounce it? Platts Harbour, on the north side of Santa Cruz Island, just 20 yards from the shore. On board were 33 passengers and 6 crew members, most of them sleeping on the bottom deck. 34 people on the bottom of the deck and 5 crew members on the top deck in the crew quarters.
So then, in the early hours of Monday, between 2 and 3 a.m., a fire broke out on board, and officials believe it started somewhere in the communal galley area on the middle deck, above where the passengers were sleeping and right in the primary emergency exit route. And the fire was also below the crew quarters. So one crew member on the top deck awoke to a loud noise and saw fire erupting from the galley and engulfing a ladder to get down to the middle deck, preventing them from getting down to the middle deck, let alone to the passengers below.
Without a ladder, the 5 crew members jumped down. One actually broke their leg in doing so that's pretty...
Yeah.
And they attempted to obviously rescue the passengers on the lower deck. At 3:15 a.m., the captain sent out a mayday call to authorities about the fire, and that's where, people were trapped on board with actually no escape hatch. There were 2 exits on the lower deck, the main staircase that was involved in the fire, and a small hatch in the ceiling in the shower room, just forward of the main sleeping area, but inaccessible to the passengers because of where the fire was. And there was a mention of a second hatch above one of the bunks towards the stern, but few previous passengers could actually recall this.
Yeah, so the crew did their very best to help the passengers and the one other crew member who were trapped below, but the heat and the intensity of the fire grew. They just had no other choice but to abandon ship and seek help from a nearby fishing vessel. Emergency services were quick to the scene to put out the fire and rescue the people trapped below, but at 7:20 a.m. the Conception sank in about 60 feet of water and is now inverted.
So all 33 passengers who had signed up for a 3-day scuba diving trip aboard the boat died in the fire, along with one member of crew who was sleeping below deck. At this moment, investigations believe that the fire was most likely started by a battery overheating during recharging overnight. 33 of the 34 victims had been recovered and are being identified by authorities, and this tragedy has sparked some concern over boat safety at large.
Yeah, so the Conception met all safety guidelines and passed its most recent safety check, and that safety check may have to be updated because of this tragedy, so that something like this can never ever happen again. For example, the fire alarms were conventional home units, individual units that weren't wired into a ship-wide system, and nobody actually has reported hearing any fire alarm going off during the incident.
The owners of the dive boat Truth Aquatics Inc. on Thursday filed a petition to eliminate their financial liability or lower it to an amount equivalent to that of the post-fire value of the boat, $0. This move comes from a 150-year-old maritime statute that should protect them from any substantial, payouts. The Limitation of Liability Act of 1851 has been used before in a few cases that you may have heard of, such as the White Star Line with the Titanic and the owners of Deepwater Horizon.
Yeah, so this type of legal action is actually fairly commonplace, though. It just feels kind of bad for the families. Sunday morning, though, agents from the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, among other agencies, actually raided the head office of Truth Aquatics Incorporated and their 2 other boats as part of the ongoing investigations. Of course, at this time, it's very important to remember not to condemn Truth Aquatics right now, because until the investigation is complete, they most likely were meeting all current safety guidelines and procedures, which may be where we actually need to be focusing our attention on this tragedy. It's terrible news, and things can be learnt from this. I know on a lot of the liveaboards that I've been on, they always sort of recommend, and it's becoming sort of more commonplace, don't leave anything charging unless you're sat right next to it. Don't leave anything charging overnight whilst you're asleep, for exactly this kind of reason.
Yeah, it's a tragedy, but hopefully we can learn from it, move from it, and then divers can be safe in the future. So obviously our thoughts are with everyone at this tragic time.